let's discuss career growth as a fitness instructor. You've entered the fitness industry and you're starting to see that it's not as smooth as you thought. Maybe it's a little bit harder to attain your first personal training client, or maybe you're having difficult getting that group fitness class started. In this episode of the KIPS Podcast, I have 2024 IDEA Fitness Instructor of the Year, Aimee Nicotera. And we're going to get to that episode in just a bit. But before that, I want to break down something that's mentioned throughout this episode, and that is the difference between being an independent personal trainer and a personal trainer that's working for a facility. If you're an independent personal trainer, you don't have that shield from the gym in terms of legality. The insurance that is covering the gym is covering you as the fitness instructor. You also do not have that ability to talk and share your skill set with a continuing revolving door of new members. When you work for a gym that's maybe a franchise, or maybe it's a well-established gym within your neighborhood, those gyms often get members that are coming in through the door constantly. They often have a sales department that is recruiting new members, signing new people up, that you, as the personal trainer, get an opportunity to share and discuss their potential goals and why they should be training with you, the personal trainer. But as an independent personal trainer, that is a whole different element. So as we discuss those pieces throughout the episode, please keep in mind that there is a difference between these two. We do start the episode talking about working for a gym, tips, fitness consultation, things along those lines. But of course, we do jump into later the independent route and some of the benefits of those. Let's get to the episode. The theme that I've been working on with KIPS and the content that's been coming out has been for new personal trainers. Sadly, our industry faces I don't want to say it's an epidemic, but it's a rough, tough situation that nearly 80% of personal trainers, fitness instructors leave the industry after 1 year of being in it. Yes, there are multiple things that go into that. It's not just one thing that we can pinpoint, but with content these days and where I want to focus it, it's on hopefully helping instructors hit the ground running. So that's what we're talking about today. New instructors, hopefully getting tips to help them build their career. But before we get into it, Aimee, can you share a little bit about your background, how you entered it, how things have been going, and what you're doing now?
All right. So I've been in this business for 30 plus years. Ooh. I have been in several roles in this industry. So I've served as fitness director at high-end kind of resort destination spas, and not at the same time, but I've also been a high school teacher in South Central LA teaching PE and health, right? Two vastly different clientele. All along the way throughout my career, I've always taught classes. I've always had a training client, whether it was one or whether it's 40, I've always had clients, right? So I've always been someone who has just organically created these multiple revenue streams along the way. So I've always had more than one job. I think every fitness professional feels like they have more than one job. And it's not a bad thing. So I feel like I've had definitely the opportunity over the years to taste fitness in a variety of capacities, if I can say that. So I started off as a fitness instructor when I was first certified. And then in order to keep my certs current, right, I did continuing education. And that's when I became a personal trainer because I needed more education just to keep my certification current. So I went down that route. I say the two complement each other very well, and we can talk about that later in the conversation too. But along the way, I received my bachelor's of science in nutrition science, my master's degree in health education. It was with a school education focus, but it does allow me to teach health education in a variety of locations or settings. I could, it not just limited to a school setting. And then since then, I've, like I said, held different positions and roles, but all the while teaching group and and having some clients along the way. I would say pre-pandemic, the past 10 years, I've created more of a niche for myself where companies have come to me or I have approached them. Both have occurred to make content for their product. So programming content, or been asked to help develop group fitness programs or small group training programs that could easily be replicated and create training packages that are intended to be for a fitness instructor so that they can in turn teach the class. So
Awesome.
that was really kind of pre-pandemic where I was. And then we all have this like mark in our journey, I think. And I created an online virtual studio during the pandemic because I lost my job, like many people who, even though I had different things going on, it was really nice to have one main gig or source of income, just to be frank. So I ended up starting my virtual studio, and I also created an online education course for my own fitness format. And currently, I'm a master trainer for Schwinn indoor cycling. I also help Crunch out as a master trainer for getting new clubs up and running, and that's a position that has just started, so it's fairly new. So I do a lot of that, but currently on the day-to-day, I'm either teaching classes at a local country club, doing something for my virtual studio, whether it's live stream or recording new content for on-demand programming. And I also have a lot of in-person personal trainer clients that I see. So that's my day-to-day.
Love it. Love it. And I think you started off with something that we should expand on more in this podcast, and that is the multiple revenue streams as a Fit Pro.
Okay.
I think that is something you don't really realize getting into the profession, that you're most likely going to be doing multiple jobs. That is one of the harsh realities of it. And one of the ones that I've kind of harped on is the personal trainer looking at group fitness, that I think it's one of the best ways to expand your client list, get more reps as a fitness professional. What would you say to that personal trainer that's looking at it and maybe thinks, oh, that's not for me, or I can't do that?
I think it's a two-way street and you cannot not do it. Yeah. I mean, it's the easiest way to build your business. Yeah. So if I'm a group fitness instructor first and I'm looking to expand, right now I have, whether it's 10 people in front of me or 50 people in front of me, that I get to showcase my skills, my motivational techniques. I drop some education nuggets, right? They get to see who I am. It's way better than just trying to convince one person to sign up with me and do personal training, but it's a really great way to just, put yourself out there to the masses to say, hey, if you want to learn more, or after class, I'd love to give you a little bit more special attention when it comes to, that exercise we were doing in class. Why don't you? I also do personal training, easy segue. And on the other hand, if I'm a trainer and I'm, looking to get more clients, why not put myself in front of an audience, right? Yeah. And showcase my skills. So it's a really great sell. While some people say, oh, it's a harsh reality that we have to have these, multiple revenue streams. Personally, I don't want to train, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's really, I don't think it's great for anybody to do that. I think you've got to have a little variety, and having the variety really helps you be fresh and stick to it. And so I personally love that I teach a little, I do a little online, and I have in-person training clients, and I have, online training clients as well. It challenges me to be fresh. It hones my skills in person, on camera, all of the things. And it keeps me challenged, and it keeps me fresh. So I'm never really bored with what I do.
I agree.
So I think when it comes to, should I my PT, should I do that? Yeah, you should at least once a week, right? You don't have to fill your schedule with classes, but I think could be really beneficial for instructors and trainers to dabble in both. It's an easy transition.
Oh yeah. I think that when you look at the business side of it, the vast majority of members are joining a gym or group fitness. It's actually a small percentage. If you're working at a big gym, it's often a very small percentage that purchase personal training. So if you are getting in front of these members that are joining for the group fitness schedule, that are coming on a weekly basis, and all of a sudden you're in front of them, and that, just how you said, showcasing your skills, showcasing your personality, it's more opportunities to show yourself, but also create that connection with them. If you can create that connection, show that, oh, this is fun. I am fun, and I can build these relationships. When they are ready for personal training, they'll come to you right off the bat. That was one of the first tips that was given to me. And I thought about, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, but there is a format for everybody out there. I don't know how to do the choreography. I remember I had to do it in college, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And that's why I give people a ton of props for it. But I used to do more boot camp, HIIT style. That was more in line with what I'm more comfortable with. And I always put that out there, that most likely, if you are uncomfortable with, try a boot camp where you're keeping time, and then you get your legs underneath you. You get that rhythm part of it. Oh man, it's such a great tool for those. And I like how you said that with the variety of it, with your schedule. If you are just doing nonstop personal training, and I know that I've had those days where you just back to back clients. Oh my goodness. After you're done, if you are, I think my wife calls me a introvert, extrovert. Like I can do both, or I am both. And I would just feel exhausted. Like I would just want to go home, sit on the couch and not talk to anybody, because you're just so emotionally drained. It's a lot on the body. But I do want to go back to what you mentioned with being fresh, and how actually online fits into that. We might have talked about this in the past. Do you feel like online helps keep you fresh, or even almost changes how you cue with clients when you're in person?
Absolutely. I think when we're in person, we cheat a little bit, because we are there. We could just do the class and people would copy us.
Yeah.
Even though they could do that on camera, it's not quite the same. They need a little bit more verbal cueing. And it's easy in person to just follow me or show me or go. And it's not always mirror imaging, right?
Yeah.
While we like mirror imaging, and this is another conversation, but mirror imaging is great to connect. But for the most people, it's really hard to follow mirror imaging, and unless you're used to it. There's a little learning curve, especially when it comes to more movement-based classes, whether it's dance or something like that that's choreographed. So I notice when I teach virtually and I'm teaching a class that's rhythmic, whether it's kickboxing or something that's on the beat, obviously I'm doing virtual facing my crowd, right? So I talk a lot. There's a lot of verbal cueing. There's a lot of big body language happening, and everything is amplified just to get that job done. And the verbal cueing, it's not just words that don't matter, but they're more precise and deliberate and very well chosen words, but they are reminders continuously. So I think, in person, it's easy to just kind of get a little lazy and whatever. They're going to do something there. They're standing right in front of you. There's nowhere to hide. If they don't follow you, they're going to follow whoever's next to them. So I would say it's a different skill set, but I like being able to do both really well. And online, even though I knew how to mirror image teach, I could never do it so well, so quickly. And now I'm much more agile on my mirror image toes, whether it's dance or more intricate choreography. So that made me better at that. But I will say that cueing virtually is a great skill. Also in person, it reminds me to have those opportunities to connect and build relationships and take moments with people individually, which you don't always get to do online in a group setting.
Yeah. For me, I don't teach as much in person that often. It's kind of rare for me. But I do my weekly online stuff with YouTube. And I actually found I was just as sharp in that period that in the past, when I wasn't doing online, every time you have a little break, whether it's moving, switching jobs, whatever that might be, you have this little period where you're not teaching, you're out of that rhythm. And I found that doing online and then going to teach in person, I felt just as sharp. I didn't feel like I was having to find my words. That's often what I had to do. And I remember before doing online, it almost took me a couple of days to get into it. You would like, wait, I usually say this when I'm teaching this exercise, or why am I so off with my coaching or my motivation, whatever that might be. It's you're not quite in sync. So I like how you mentioned that it keeps you sharp, it keeps you in rhythm, and it actually makes you better. And I agree. It makes you better.
I think so too. And if you're doing something where you're recording it, you're so much more aware of the words you're saying, of what your body's doing. And even if you're just recording it to use again for your own, clients or whatever, it's going to be replayed. I filter more, right? In person, there's probably way more things I shouldn't say out loud that come out. But when I'm on film, I'm like, oh yeah, I say to myself, probably not going to want to hear that again. That could go either way. So it really does tighten up your presence and your presentation. I 100% agree with you there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That is also the beauty of editing as well. Being somebody that edits a lot of video, I can tell you right now that I will edit some things that if I should have said things, I'm going to cut it right there, especially if my face is not towards the camera. Like, let's say I'm in a plank position. Oh, I'm going to trim that out right now. Boom. Yeah. Gone. That's behind.
And if you're like me, who tries to do minimal editing, I like to be that one-shot wonder. So I feel like it's a little pressure on yourself to try to perform well, always look towards the camera. It's great. It's a good kind of pressure too.
Yeah, I agree. I want to shift now to talking a little bit more with the fitness consultation. That's kind of some content that's been coming out more with KIPS. And I recently recorded a video on setting up the fitness consultation. So kind of tips that you would do before the potential client even gets to the gym. Things that will hopefully set the tone of it, get them in the mindset, hopefully increase your chances of somebody even picking up the phone, returning a phone call, whatever that might be. For a new personal trainer just getting into the industry, this is probably something that is new, that whole cold calling skill set. What would you emphasize early on for new personal trainers, parts of the consultation, parts of the sales pitch? What are some of those pieces?
Well, I think it's really important to understand that the consultation, or maybe consultation isn't really the right word, but that like little interview or sales pitch, you're not getting paid for that. So you better do a great job, especially if you want to make that turn over the sale, right? And get that client. Yeah. So a few things come to mind. Number one, listen to the client. Like, ask them, what are you looking for? And let them just come at you with everything. Use words like, tell me more about that. Yeah. Where would you like to see yourself? Yeah. What's really important to you in your life, right? Because the idea is you're going to learn what they value physically, aesthetically, personally. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe they're pressed for time and their whole issue is they love their family or they love a certain hobby and they just can't make time for themselves. So listen to them, hear them, and really take it in. Find out what's important to them, what they value. Once you have that information, you tailor your pitch to that. Listen, if you're going to hear them say, oh, I'm busy, we've got short, effective programming. I not only do hour sessions, but I also do half-hour sessions. You can do that, or whatever it might be. But you have to hear what they want. And it's not just telling them how great you are. I've noticed that sometimes sharing anecdotal stories, or, maybe if they've gone through something hard. For instance, I'll use myself. I had breast cancer, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm a cancer survivor. I just did this," or and they're thinking they've got this dramatic story to tell. Not that it's not dramatic and wonderful, but when you can say, "You know what? I actually experienced something similar." Not like you're one-upping them, but you're really trying to say, "Oh, this trainer is going to get me," right? Yeah. So whether they say, "Well, I try to, run races, or I'm a runner and I do triathlons," you might share, "You know what? I love triathlons too," right? So now you've built this trust. So hear them, find out what they value, build trust, and create some kind of a common ground. And then I feel like once you've got that, boom, you're in.
I like that. I like the common ground piece of it. I think sometimes we want to overshare and guide the conversation ourselves about us. And just how you mentioned with talking too much about how great you are, but listening is such a—
I've got this and I've got that and I've got this, It's more important, I think, when they say, "I've got 4 kids." You're like, "Well, I have 1 too. I know what it's like to be a mom." Or, "Oh, I'm taking care of my elderly parents. So I have some parents too." Or, that are going through those same things. People want to feel like they're going to be able to relate to you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
What about the piece? Let's go back to talking about the sales pitch, the voice of it. I think that is, in my opinion, one of the harder aspects of it. And I know that I was bad as a personal trainer with it. And that's why I always enjoyed other pieces of it that I could emphasize. I'll admit it right here in this podcast that I am a bad sales pitch person. It's hard to ask people for money. And I always tried to just showcase my knowledge and my education, create the connection with them. And hopefully they just want to be training with you. And somehow it worked. I'll admit it. Somehow it worked.
Well, that's a great point though, because I've never been great at that myself either. And I will say it's been in the last 5 years that I have just I have prices, I stick to them, and I say, and if you just say it and present your value, people know things cost money. And so they respect that. And I've never been awesome at the sales pitch either, but I will say you make a few and you don't have to make any more because it's word of mouth after that. And so if you could just stick to getting a little uncomfortable a couple of times, and whether it's, "Oh, by the way, I do training," and make an easy segue. I haven't had to sell myself in a long time. People come to me and I don't want to necessarily be too much busier than I already am. So it's a fine line, right? Where you sell yourself versus just handle what's coming at you. Because if every one of your clients right now has a friend, you're going to be really busy.
With the consultation, what are some of your go-tos with it? I know that when I used to do the consultation or the complimentary session, I would always do a quick run through of the health history because I want to get them on the floor. And this is my style. That was my style of it. I want to give them some exercises that, like these are fun. These are different things that kind of showcase my style of personal training. And then very quickly at the end, I would give them the pitch. What are some of your go-to or your style of it, your flow of it?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to acknowledge the difference of being a trainer in a fitness facility, where the fitness facility might give the complimentary training session, which sounds like you're describing. Yeah. And then when you're an independent trainer, I don't give that. We get like a 20-minute, phone call, maybe depending on what they need. And they decide then, after I describe what'll happen in the first session, if they would like that. So that's how I work. And I give them, I'll give them my resume, my website to go to, where there's free, exercise sessions on that if they'd like to check that out first. But since I'm not in a commercial gym setting, I don't have to do that piece. But having been there at least a little bit, I think it is important to showcase your talent, give them some things that are kind of unique, but also, again, it's about hearing them and meeting them where you are. It's not about killing the person. Anybody can give somebody hard exercises to make them feel sore. It's about giving them a little bit of a taste and helping them understand where their potential lies in growth and helping them see the opportunity for their own growth and function based on what they really value. Yeah. So I think you hit it on the head. There's not much else you can do in those situations. You're a little limited, but you showcase what makes you the best, how you relate to the client, and gives them a taste of what to expect and leave them wanting more. This would be the first step, but, give them a glimpse into the future about how you would progress. Yeah. Now, independent, if I'm just an independent trainer, I make sure on that consult that we do, whether it's in person or on the phone, I always have a lifestyle questionnaire. I always have a health history, a waiver. I give them that information first. I try to make it so they're doing that on their own time and it's not cutting into my first session with them. And always on the first session, we do some sort of assessment. And so they feel like they're getting something valuable that first session, because it is half, okay, we're talking it out about what your goals are, and half fitness assessment. So they've already, I learned from them, but they already got a pretty robust and thorough fitness assessment out of that. And after that, they're hooked, because now they're like, oh my gosh, look at all this. I thought I was so great and I'm not. But you let them see their opportunity for growth.
Oh yeah. And I do want to emphasize the style of it. We both are sharing our own styles of how we would do the complimentary session or the consultation within a gym setting or independent setting. And I know that there's other content out there that might recommend it being all talking or not even getting into the gym. And there's a variety of ways that you can handle it. And that is part of your choice as a fit pro. Especially if you're growing in the industry, you might want to try it a different way. You're not locked into, this is the way that I was taught how to do it, and I'm always sticking to this. Something that you mentioned, and I'm glad you brought this up within the distinction between working in a facility and being an independent. I think there are probably a few steps that you should go through in your career before going that route, just because it can be difficult and not everybody has that skill set right off the bat. What are maybe some milestones or some things that you should probably have under your belt before you want to go be an independent trainer working? Maybe you're renting space in a facility, like an independent boutique gym or a smaller gym. What are some things that you would recommend?
Well, I think that you need to learn the trade. So even though you've got the certification of the license and the insurance to, have clients legally and, from that perspective, I think it's like anything else. You graduate from a program like a hairdresser, right? You don't just get your license and go do some hair. You practice on people, right? Yeah. Or like a tattoo artist or a home builder. You don't build a mansion first. You probably build like a doghouse or a shed, right? So I think it's getting some hands-on experience and really shadowing people, watching trainers in the gym, even when maybe you're working out and you're not even on duty or anything, but watch other people train. Find out the kind of trainer you don't want to be like. Do you want to be the trainer that's counting reps, looking at their phone, having a coffee, sitting down? Do you want to be that engaged trainer who's like throwing the ball back and forth with the client or, down on their level? I think it's important to find things that we all have different personalities, and I'm not saying either one of those styles is necessarily wrong and they won't work for you, but really kind of finding out who you are as a trainer. So watch people learn, and that's one piece of it. And then definitely practice, how am I going to write a program? Am I going to write things down every session with a person? Or maybe sometimes I don't. Like maybe I'm going to do an assessment. We have our initial program and they're coming in to see me to be accountable. Or maybe it is somebody that, we want to track things. We have specific things that we're doing together each time. All of those are different methods and they're not wrong, but you have to figure out what's right for you. So I would say watch and learn, practice on people and take the job of floor trainer. I feel like if you're in a facility and you get to wear that different color t-shirt than all the other trainers, or, have that job that everybody hates and you don't make any money, pick up the weights, clean up the equipment, watch people, make conversations with members, go up to people and say, oh, can I just ask you what muscle you're trying to work? Oh, you know what I learned the other day at blah, 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 right? Can I just show you? Or, really kind of take some time to observe what's happening. And then you just do have to jump in eventually. There's always going to be that first client. But I think doing those things that I mentioned before are key.
Oh, yeah. I agree 100% with the reps of it. You have to get reps under your belt to find your own style of it. And I know when I first started out, I was a young personal trainer. I didn't really have as many reps. I was trying to grow a client base, trying to figure out where I wanted, did I want to do group exercise? How did I want to do all these different things? And fortunately, I started off at a higher end facility, and I went after that to a somewhere that's a little more local to when I was in college. But and I bring this up because yes, it was a lower. In terms of lower tier gym, I'm talking about the membership base of this. How much are members paying for their membership, and that does dictate how much you're going to be getting paid as a personal trainer. And yes, the membership base was a lower tier, but I got great reps, fantastic reps of personal training that really helped me hone my cueing, hone how I was instructing clients. And that type of reps, it was almost an instant value. And I recommend that all the time for personal trainers, new personal trainers. Get your reps. Yes, you do want to eventually be training. If you're going to be working at a facility, you do want to be hopefully working at a higher end, because it's better pay. It's tougher, harder environment, but it's all worth it. But don't discount the lower tier gyms for reps, and that could set you up in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I know there's some pressure in various commercial fitness facilities where you have to make the sales or you have to make a number of clients. And, maybe that's not the best place to start. Maybe you go to I don't want to say, like you said, lower end facility, but maybe it's your neighborhood gym and you work one day a week, or you take on a couple clients and you just, start working with some people that are not going to be necessarily long term, but just to get your feet wet, where there's not that pressure. And then you can really find yourself and your style.
Agree. And I mean, going the independent route can be fantastic. I think some trainers, once they feel ready, they can go that route, and they can potentially make more because you're not having to split the session with the facility. But having that business piece of it, especially if you have that part of your skill set that you do like social media, you do like making content, and I'll set up my pricing. I'll set up all the business items of it. It could be a great way. What have been some of the benefits that you've discovered that you really like about being an independent personal trainer?
Well, I like the fact that I can tailor what I'm doing to meet my clients' needs. I have worked in situations where I was right next to a physical therapy office, and depending on the type of physical therapy that's done, there's protocols. So I would see these PTs just have something come in front of them, and then they're stuck to this certain method, and they just don't deviate, and they can't. And I love the freedom to have so many different tools in my toolbox from all the education I continually do to meet my client where they are. And maybe they're in pain, right? We get them out of pain first. How do we do that? Well, we try a whole bunch of different things, right? And we, from looking at alignment and structure and, all those things. But I feel like I have the flexibility to do whatever I feel like is going to help that client the most. I don't need to stick to a certain thing that maybe a certain club insists that we do the first session, the second session, and the third session. So that freedom, I think is great. Also, I love the fact that I can be online. Sometimes people just want to work out with you and they want you to teach them by themselves. Okay. I do have some clients. I give private classes. Basically, that's what it is. And then I have other clients where, whether it's online or in person, where it's really coaching for a specific need. So I feel like being independent allows me to meet my clients in one of the best ways possible, because I have that freedom to explore with them. And of course, there's hands down, I make my own schedule. And I can get up at 6 a.m. and walk down in my studio and do something online while my kiddo sleeps upstairs. Bingo, that's awesome. So there is that flexibility, which is super important. But I do want to note this, Tyler, too, is, when people decide, I'm going to go independent, you don't just become independent and have like 40 clients. So the best way to do that is to build the side hustle first, to start off. Maybe you do something early in the morning before your regular shift, wherever you are or whatever you're doing, or you do a few in the evening or at lunch, or you pick 1 or 2 days a week where you're going independent, so to speak, because it just doesn't happen like that. Eventually it will, and it does happen quickly sometimes, but you can't expect to just say, okay, I'm going to start a new job. I'm in business for myself. Monday, where is everybody? You have to kind of, whenever you start a new business, there's that time when you're doing 2 things at once. You're doing one and the other's down here. And then for a while you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I can do both of these forever. And then the second one is where you put your priority. So there is that transition time.
Agree. The business piece of it, as well as how are you finding those clients as an independent trainer? You don't have that constant influx of new members coming in, and you're having to go out and find them, and you're tapping into different streams. Is it the refer a friend? Are you doing more networking? Are you going to networking events? All these things start to come into play, and it really does test you as a small business owner. So I like how you mentioned that, having that side hustle. It's very important. Can
I just say one more thing too?
Please.
Even though I don't know, I don't really want to suggest this necessarily, but I love the fact that I can be in charge of my pricing. So if I feel like I want to barter with my hairdresser, I can. And if I feel like, I know somebody's in a financial position where they're stressed, but they value what we do together and they are committed. I have the freedom to create my own little sliding scale that nobody really has to know about. And that doesn't always happen when you work for someone else. So I think that can be really, really valuable, whether it's trading, bartering, or just having that, ability to, change it if we need to. And that could go with a client who's so high maintenance. They take more of your time all the time, and you let them know, listen, these are my hourly rates. And so guess what? Even if you sit here and talk to me for an extra half hour, it's going on there. So it works both ways, right? So I think that's important to note.
Yeah. And emphasizing what you mentioned with all these other pieces, if you're doing online, if you're offering different types of coaching, working within a facility, it can, and I don't want to say every facility is like this, but it can hinder that potential, because they often want, if you are training people, they want you training people in their gym. They want their cut. And if you ever get into that situation where potentially you're training people at 2 different spots, well, where did you meet this person? Did you meet them in our gym? And then all of a sudden this whole drama piece becomes a part of it that you never had planned. So
Right.
there are those, but flexibility, definite benefit. We're going to get to the podcast takeaways here as we start to wrap up this episode. A lot of great insight already for new personal trainers and existing personal trainers, group exercise instructors, as being I'm going to call it the reigning 2024 Fitness Instructor of the Year.
Yay.
We're going to get to some more tips here. What are 3 myths about the fitness industry?
3 myths about the fitness industry. I think that myth number 1 is that if you're 2024 Fitness Instructor of the Year, that you're this big celebrity and you're rolling in it and you made it. And, it's still work. It's still a grind. I mean, there are a few jobs in this business where, it's easy maybe, or, it's a little bit more comfortable, but most of the fitness professionals that I know, in colleagues, we are all working because we're passion driven. We love what we do. And that's the bottom line. And frankly, you get some good gigs here and there that are really great. We're surviving. Some of us are thriving more than others, but it's still an industry where you got to work hard. Nobody's just sitting up there, working out all day long, loving life, prepping meals 24/7. And, we still have lives and it's still hard. So I think it looks like a glam dream job sometimes, but it's real. It's real. Yeah. So that's one. I think 2 is the myth that, it's not work. Like, we see fit people and you're like, oh, you're so fit, or you're so, healthy. I'm just not like that. I think there's a myth in the fitness industry that fit people are just like that. I don't know anybody really who's just like that, who's past 20 years old, right? I mean, maybe we're just like that as a kid, but if we looked harder, you probably weren't. I think it takes mindfulness, it takes discipline to get workouts in, to get movement in, to get sleep, to be mindful of how you're managing all of those other aspects, to be mindful of your nutrition. We don't have to be perfect about everything, but to have self-discipline, to have moderation. I don't know any fit pros out there who are just like, who look absolutely ripped every single day. And I don't know how many times I have to tell people that's a photo shoot. They looked like that for like 4 days, and then they went and ate a cheeseburger and drank some water, and now they look normal. Right. Yeah. So I think the myth is, oh, you're so fit, you're just like that. It's not true. It takes work. And on the other hand, that idea of, oh, I want to look like that, like that's reality all the time. It's not really. Yeah. So that's like 2.5 myths. And I think the third one is that I could never do it. I think sometimes, not just from a consumer base, but like a personal trainer, a fitness instructor. Well, I could never do that. I could never get in front of people. Yes, you can. You can do anything you put your mind to. Like, oh, I could never run a marathon. Anybody can run a marathon if they train. It is. You're going to finish it. I'm not saying you're going to break a record, but you're going to finish it. So I think if you have that desire to branch out to be a trainer, you have that desire to branch out to be a group fitness instructor, just start. Just make some progress. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be awesome at it. Just get in there, get your feet wet, and go for it. I like all of us did that at one point. So none of us just got on stage and were perfect. So that's a myth. We didn't get there like that. So go for it if you're thinking about it.
To tie this into our whole episode here with the hustle, the grind of it, it's 100% true that the marketing for this industry is often follow your passion, help all these people, work whenever you can. And it's not. It is a grind. The hours are very different. It is constant hustle. There's very little pay at the beginning. Yes, it can be rewarding, and it is rewarding. Yeah. But I often look at it as, if you are in this industry past a year, awesome. There is something you're doing that is correct, and to please follow that path more. It is hard to make it past 1 year. And I know many, and I'm sure you too, that they just couldn't last past a year. But before we sign off here, can you provide social media, website, anything that you're promoting right now? Throw it all out there.
Yeah, easy. It's just my name, and I can just move my head here. It's just AimeeNicotera.com. You can find everything there. You can find my on-demand library, live stream schedule, which will be more of if you go look there now and don't see anything. I do it a little bit more week by week now. But check that website out on Instagram and Facebook. Just Aimee Nicotera, you'll find me. And that's it. If you want to join my email list, shoot me an email. It's just Aimee@Aimeenicotera.com. So all the ways to connect with me are on my website, or just slide into my DMs and we'll connect.
There you go. Great episode. Great content for Fit Pros out there. I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing all that insight.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.